Let's watch some more agility videos.
The company basically was conceived in the emerging markets, and unlike some of our competitors who developed from an established Western market perspective, we feel quite comfortable operating in the emerging markets. We feel that our customers understand the risks of doing business in the emerging markets, but understand also that the rewards of doing business in the emerging markets are outpacing the opportunities in the developed markets. So
he grew up essentially in emerging markets. He's comfortable in emerging markets. It's a high risk area to operate in, but offers high rewards.
We believe that going forward, our customers are increasingly asking us to provide a solution for them in the emerging markets. We understand that it's more risky to do business, but in the long run, it's also better for the company to do so.
The supply chain is about anticipation.
The supply chain is about anticipation.
When the CIA went back and looked at the Arab-Israeli war in 1973, and they said, listen, how could we have predicted this? The only predictor that they had, in hindsight, was that the government of Syria was stockpiling rice, which tells you something, that if you pay attention to what's happening in the supply chain, you can really have a good idea as to what's going to happen in the future.
So if you pay attention to the supply chain, you can tell what's going to happen in the future and what's happening right now.
What preceded after that is that the government started to become increasingly protectionist. And we have, since 2017 till today, introduced over 3,000 different new trade constraints or rules. Part of that is related to COVID. Obviously, it was used as a convenient excuse to introduce trade restrictions that would make, maybe would benefit narrow interests of sort of investors or people participating in global community, in global trade. But the net effect of that is that the world became a much more complex place to do business.
I know the pandemic happened in 2019, but it sounds like something happened in 2017 that caused all these constraints to be put into place. So that would be another area of interest to research at a later point.
And I would add to that one of the interesting side effects of COVID is that governments became more digital. So the fact that governments became more digital means they became more effective. And when you introduce 3,000 new different constraints in a digital construct, it means those constraints become very effective and very abiding. I would also say that while this was all happening, we had three major decouplings, I would say, in the global political arena. We had the Russia West, we had China, US, and we have obviously what you see here now in the Red Sea. And all of these, for all of these reasons, I think you can see how difficult it is to do business in an environment that's changing so fluidly.
And this video was published about 7 months ago. And just recently, the trade dynamics, and of course I'm not an expert in trade, but they have recently changed with more pressure being applied from large countries to other large countries.
Accurate way. So I think going forward, more and more companies are going to be looking to get their new business opportunities from the emerging markets. So that's something that's part of our strategy that's going to continue to develop and continue to be important not only to us but to our customers who are also looking to grow in a world that's being increasingly constrained by growth. So I think that's one part of our strategy that we'll continue to focus on.
That's one part of his strategy, is that he's anticipating that, and this is probably a video about 10 years ago. It's not recent, but he's saying that the businesses will be focusing on emerging markets. That's not large markets of large countries, but they're turning to these high risk emerging markets that are inside small to medium sized countries.
As global growth shifts to the developing world, what should be the role of business in developing countries?
I think it's very important for business to take a long-term view with respect to the emerging markets. As we look forward to the emerging markets, it's very important that we try to leapfrog some of the sort of technologies and approaches that were first adopted in developed economies and try to start.
No, he's talking about taking technologies from developed countries and using that in emerging markets. I wonder what type of technologies he's thinking of using.
Off the bat with the best possible approach to doing business. And I think our role as business leaders is to make sure that we're starting off in the emerging markets with a very modern slate, very clean slate, and basically bringing the latest technology and the latest solutions to bear from day one, so that we don't have to go through the learning curve that we had to in some of our other developed.
And he's talking about starting off with a clean slate and redoing things.
Economies.
But it proved that what we could do, and then once you have that proof point, you're going to leapfrog off of it, and you're going to stand on those shoulders and leapfrog again. And
hang on, let me go back to the previous video, because I just heard him say leapfrogging.
Once you have that proof point, you're going to leapfrog off of it, and you're going to.
Let's go back to the other video.
As global growth.
As we look forward to the emerging markets, it's very important that we try to leapfrog some of the sort of technologies and approaches that were first adopted in developed economies, and try to start off.
What's he saying
here?
It
proved that what we could do, and then once you have that proof point, you're going to leapfrog off of it, and you're going to stand on those shoulders and leapfrog again. And to go, where we are today versus sort of these humble beginnings is amazing to see, but a testament to a team that is just dedicated and focused on the end goal.
How can companies turn sustainability into a competitive advantage?
Now he's going into sustainability.
Our core business is helping companies re-engineer their supply chains. In the past, we focused on delivering efficiencies around cost, efficiencies around time, value propositions around industry. I think the new paradigm will be re-engineering value chains around sustainable concepts and stakeholder inclusion. I think if we approach our supply chains in that way and start from scratch and take an inclusive approach to.
Yeah, it sounds like he wants to scrap how things are done currently and change things to a new way or a new approach of doing things.
To these new processes, I think we'll be in a position to really create a sustainable advantage for the years to come.
It's always the case when there's a natural disaster, we usually have people on the ground in the countries that are most heavily impacted, countries like Pakistan and Indonesia and the Philippines and China. At the end of the day, we always have one of the few companies that has people that are on the ground and being impacted by these events. So I think it was important for us to make sure that we reached out to our own people during times of need, but we also felt that we had a unique opportunity to do something special for the world humanitarian organizations by leveraging what we do best, and that's logistics on the ground. An entity like the UN is not, cannot and should not be present in every country and at any given point in time.
that would be a waste of their resources. We have that network, we have that trucking, we have those.
He has trucking. He's good with shipping things on the ground at a global scale. And in later videos, well, in the previous video segment I did on agility, he was talking about shipping containers and how they make noise. So he pretty much on a global scale helps move things from point A to point B.
Distribution and the sort of warehousing that are needed by the UN during times of need. And, you know, having that capability and leveraging it for the global humanitarian community is something that comes naturally to our company and something that we believe in. And it's been a good partnership, and we're happy that we work very closely with the World Economic Forum to make this into a reality. And
he brings up the World Economic Forum.
It's been a good partnership, and we're happy that we work very closely with the World Economic Forum to make this into a reality, and something that helps our culture as well. I think, you know, our company has gone through a number of acquisitions over time. I don't know the precise number, but 40 or 50 different companies over a very short period of time have been put together and created under one brand. Having sort of a common identity and being able to work together on difficult assignments is something that's really important to our brand. Our customers are looking for a company that can actually operate in difficult environments.
And I'm pretty sure that customers are looking for a generator that can also operate under harsh environments. And I'm sure that also applies to trucks. But it almost seems like he has like a philanthropic kind of trait to him. It's like, since he's accomplished everything, is like, what's next? Let's help the world for the betterment of society.
So it's important that we are able to do that and we practice that.
AI is, I mean, the short answer to that is AI is going to be a disaster for the climate agenda in the initial phases. I mean, if you look at the requirements, for example, for a data center that uses, that's leveraging AI, that data center on a per capita basis, you're going to need 10 times the amount of electricity that you would consume in a normal data center. So that's probably what Abu Dhabi is gearing up for. That initial kind of scaling up for artificial intelligence is going to be something that's somehow damaging to the environment. It's an opportunity, but it's going to be damaging to the environment because currently some of that technology will come from non-green sources. That's just the reality of the situation. I know a few vendors that have opened up some new facilities in South Africa, and their only choice was to get diesel generators to power their data centers. And they weren't even able to get some of the more efficient diesel generators. They had to go to a second and third tier because demand is so high for electricity production.
So data centers are extremely hungry for power. He's commenting on the emerging markets. One of the areas is Africa, and for some reason, they're putting data centers in Africa, and they're looking for a company that has solutions that can provide power, and they're going to diesel generators. There's no diesel generator. It's almost like Bitcoin mining, where everyone wants graphics card, not Bitcoin, Ethereum. When on Ethereum, the version 1 of it is like, with all this cryptocurrency mining, everyone wants video cards, and there's no video cards to be found, so they have to pay a premium. They're just trying to find something that generates power. They're looking around and going to, well, this one's an old one, but no one wants it, so they'll buy it up. And there's a company I know that's working on a generator that you can create from a 3D printer, but it's not ready yet. But the customers are just desperately searching for something.
When we look at any solutions, Raymond, we look for three things. One is technical feasibility. Is it technically feasible, right? And second is supply chain feasibility, right?
Now, this gentleman here, Govey, even though it says Executive Director Cummins Inc., a year ago, he just shows up at HYLN, and he's now the Chief Commercial Officer at HYLN. But this is a video that was published just shortly before he moved over to HYLN.
For commercial feasibility, as you say, is it really commercially feasible? Because at the end of the day, economics matter, right? You can have a best solution out there, but if it doesn't actually mean a cost-effective option for those who are using it, it doesn't really actually drive adoption, right? So that part of it. And the third part of it is more in terms of feasibility of application in data centers. The data centers now are not the data centers that like, if you go back 15, 20 years back. 15, 20 years back, a data center of like 10 megawatt is a big data center. Now, one data hall could be is like 3 megawatt, 4 megawatt, and the campus could be like 300 megawatt, 400 megawatt. So at that scale, the requirements change significantly, right? You cannot just...
He's talking about scale, not of scaling generators, but he's talking about the scale of demand.
Rely on actually saying that, hey, this solution would work for this 100 kilowatt, 200 kilowatt. It has to work at scale. That means if it's running, if the application is actually being deployed, the supply chain all the way going up.
And I know agility is a large part of the supply chain. That's he deals in that area. Tarek.
It has to work at scale. That means if it's running, if the application is actually being deployed, the supply chain all the way going up to the component, and also once installation supporting and fuel availability, everything should be scaling up to support the data center needs. So that is what we look at in terms of, hey, is it technically feasible? Is it commercially feasible or economically feasible? And third is the supply chain and the support infrastructure is viable enough to support a data centers, right? So that is what we actually take into consideration or modeling to understand how we see the adoption growing for different technologies, right? Whether it's in hydrogen, internal combustion engines, or in PEM fuel cells, methanol, ammonia, natural gas.
I wonder if there's a generator that accepts all those multiple fuels.
HEO, diesel, renewable natural gas. So we look at all of those and we model it out to see, is it available, is it feasible, and what are the probability that actually will get there. And that's what we use to actually to guide ourselves in terms of bidding on technologies that may not help immediately, but it may actually help us go faster towards it.
Is he betting or bidding on technologies? I'm not really sure.
We use to actually to guide ourselves in terms of bidding on technologies that may not help immediately, but it may actually help us go faster towards the decarbonization journey 5 or 7 years from now.
5 to 7 years from now. And that video was created a year ago. So that would be 2029 to 2030. And Carno, they're talking about starting to scale up their data center generators starting in 2026. I'm going to assume that may shift to 2027. Of course, I can't predict the future because they have to undergo some learnings. And so it kind of puts once they start ramping up, that same kind of 5 to 7 year kind of timeline. It's off by a year or two, but yeah. Cummins bidding on technology, highly on, well, agility. Tarek is standing right next to Thomas Healy in some photos that was associated with the WEF. So he has a vested interest, and he's going, and his plan was to invest in to invest in established countries and their technology and apply them to small emerging markets, because that's where he sees the opportunity on his side. And it's risky, but he has experience in dealing with risk. That's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching.